Hello, everybody. I'm Isaac Davenport. Welcome to Exploring Plant and Animal Science. And today we are going to be looking at animal care and handling in the livestock industry. So, guys, a lot of people are concerned that farmers um, a lot of people think that farmers don't care about their animals. There's a misconception that farmers um, often are only thinking about the bottom line of making money, and that is absolutely not true. People involved in animal agriculture are involved because they love to work with animals. And part of working with animals is making sure that their needs are met and they are handled appropriately, and so that they're taken care of. So, what we're going to discuss today are the aspects of animal care and handling with dealing with three main ideas. First, how do we move animals? How do we handle the movement of animals from one place to another, whether it is from one pasture to another, one farm to another, or from farm to the slaughterhouse? And then the second thing that we're going to talk about are preventative measures, ways to prevent disease. And the third is what happens when animals get sick. What are treatment measures, and what are some examples of those? So let's go ahead and get started. Take a look at our information. So basically, guys, there are three goals that we have about moving animals in a healthy lifestyle. First, what are the management practices for healthy animals? Second, what are preventative measures to keep animals healthy? And third, what are some treatment measures used to treat animals when they get sick? So, first of all, let's talk about our main focus, okay? The handling and transportation practices of animals. So, the goal of these handling and transportation practices is to first limit the amount of stress placed on the animal. Stress is bad. It can actually make animals sick. So by limiting the amount of stress, we actually have healthier animals. So we deal with this in 5 ways: space, temperature, loading and unloading, and trucks and trailers. These are the practices that we use with limiting stress in these given situations. First, space. We always follow the accepted recommendations of proper space per animal. That means we never overpopulate a space. There are set guidelines for how many animals can live in a certain square foot of a chicken house, of a turkey house, of pasture land, of a hog house. And so farmers follow these strict guidelines to make sure that the animals have the space that they need. Now, this looks different in different situations, and so we're going to talk about specific spacing requirements when we're talking about how swine, cattle, goats, sheep, and poultry are raised. But space is the number one thing that we consider to reduce stress. Second, we basically can try to control the temperature. Now, we do this in different ways. First of all, many animal agriculturalists and how we raise animals is we provide them with shelter in some form or another. So even when you're raising animals on pasture land and in pastures, a lot of times there are things where an animal can come in and get out of the sun to be able to control their temperature. So we attempt to control, protect animals from changes in temperature and limit handling and transportation when there are extreme weather conditions. Extreme meaning too hot or too cold to move animals. This would prevent them from being stressed and being exposed to temperatures that they wouldn't normally be exposed to. Third, we limit stress during unloading and loading as an attempt to calmly and quietly move animals as possible. And we try to not use things like pig whips and electric prods because it could cause unnecessary stress on the animal. These are still tools that are used, but we limit them.
This is a reminder that the leadership team.
So we limit the use of whips and electric prods because it could cause unnecessary stress on the animals. Now, again, pig boards, whips, prods, they're still used, but we don't use them to excess. We use them for the noise. We use them to give provocation to animals who might be being stubborn and not letting other animals move. We do not use them on every animal to get them moved. We limit the use of those tools. And finally, in trucks and tractors and trailers, when moving animals from one place to another, we divide these into compartments. And we make sure that they're clean and well ventilated and that the drivers do not create sudden stops, which could add stress to the animals and cause them to jostle and freak them out. So these are the things that we try to avoid or control to lessen stress on animals. So with that in mind, we need to keep in mind this idea of how do we care for animals when they are sick? Well, there's two methods that we deal with in this. The first is preventative measures, okay? So preventative measures are measures that are intended or used to prevent or hinder or act as an obstacle to. So preventative measures are measures that farmers attempt to use to avoid an animal getting sick. These include things like keeping hooves trimmed. These include things like removing needle teeth and docking, and especially vaccination to prevent disease. So preventative measures are used to prevent something from happening, to prevent a disease or an infection or an injury. Okay? Preventative, to keep it from happening. We wear football helmets to prevent head injuries. We vaccinate animals to prevent them from getting sick. And treatment measures. So treatment measures are the measures that we take when we know that an animal has gotten sick. Okay? We know the situation, the animal is suffering in some way, and so we treat the animal with medicines, surgery, and management practices to help that animal get better more quickly. Okay? So the next thing that I'm going to show you are some examples of preventative measures and treatment measures that we need to kind of keep in mind. So let's go over some examples of preventative and treatment measures. And let's zoom in so that we can see these a little more effectively. And I'm going to put, nope, don't want to move that there. I'm going to put, again, don't want to move it. There we go. I'm going to put myself right up here in the corner. So we're going to do 4 examples of treatment measures and 4 examples of preventative measures. So treatment. Okay, remember, we are treating a disease. So an example of treatment is treating an animal that has gotten pink eye. Pink eye is a disease that is carried by insects and it affects the eyes of cattle. The eyes become pink and cloudy, and blindness could occur in infected cattle. So what we do is we isolate the cattle in a dark place and we give them antibiotics and sulfa drugs so that they can fight off this pink eye infection. So we quarantine them in a dark place so that they're not suffering and so that their eyes aren't hurting as badly. We give them antibiotics and other medicines. That is treatment. So the other example of treatment would be Scowers disease. This is caused by a bacteria and it can lead to dangerous diarrhea in pigs and cattle. And so diarrhea basically means that the body could get dehydrated, and that could mean that the animal could die from dehydration. And so we give an antibiotic or a sulfa drug given once the disease has been identified within 24 hours, and hopefully that will clear up scours from those animals. Avian influenza or bird flu. This is caused by a virus. And so the poultry can cough and sneeze and lose weight because of being infected by avian influenza. So we treat avian influenza with antibiotics to reduce the disease and the potential death loss once infected birds are found. And then the last treatment example is foot rot. This affects sheep, goats, and cattle, and it's caused by 2 different bacteria. And when animals are infected, they become lame. That means their feet hurt and they don't want to stand up and walk, and they could potentially part of a hoof. So animals with foot rot need to be isolated, have their hooves trimmed, and have their hooves washed in a foot bath solution to kill off the bacteria. So those are examples of treatment measures. So let's talk about preventative measures. And I know I have preventative spelled wrong. I apologize. I did this quick fix very quickly. So preventative measures are all about preventing something from happening in the first place. Okay? So blackleg is a disease that's caused by a bacteria that causes lameness. That means the animal doesn't want to stand up. It doesn't want to walk. It just wants to sit and not do anything. It can also give the cattle fever, and it can be really fatal to cows. So calves are vaccinated when they're young, and then again when they wean, well, that means when they stop getting milk from their mom, in order to prevent the disease. Then we have rhinitis. Rhinitis is a disease that is caused by a bacteria, and it affects the nasal passages of pigs. So we vaccinate them for rhinitis to help sows from not getting the disease, and also to try to prevent disease in piglets. Now, it doesn't eliminate it, but it can reduce the amount of animals that could get the disease and pass it on. Newcastle disease. Newcastle disease is caused by viruses, and it leads to breathing problems and shaking and paralysis in poultry. And so how we prevent animals, these poultry, from getting Newcastle disease is we make sure that areas are properly sanitized where these birds are living, and we give vaccinations to young birds. Tetanus is our next example of preventative measures. Tetanus is caused by bacteria in the soil, and it can affect cattle, sheep, goats. And infected animals become limited in their ability to walk, they lose their appetite, and they can potentially die. So farmers should make their equipment sterilized before using with animals and vaccinate animals with a tetanus shot so that they will not get this disease. So, guys, those are the examples of these different preventative and treatment measures. So, what I want you guys to do is there is a flippity where I'm going to give you more examples of preventative treatments and Also, preventative measures and treatments. And I want you guys to basically categorize these things. You also have a Quizlet that's also going to be asking you what to do with these different animal care and handling measures. And you will have a quiz at the end of the week with some of these examples. So that's the end of the lesson, guys. Have a great day. I'll see you next time.